All right, dudes. So today I've got Ashton and Lane here. These are my roommates, aka Lakeside Boys.
That's us.
We're doing a combo cast.
Collaboration, huh?
Yeah, collab. This is going to be on the Freaking Dope channel as well as the Lakeside Boys channel. So today we're talking about Tenet, the movie by Christopher Nolan. We watched it last night.
Not our first time, though.
Right. We saw it in the theater.
Yeah, we did.
And then we decided we wanted to start doing some movie reviews. So it should be cool. Should be. I went to film school. Ashton has seen more movies than I have, though. So
I have a lot of time on my hands, but I think the first time we watched this movie, we all decided after our hour-long dialogue/arguments that this would be a good idea if we got on camera and discussed some of these topics. Some of us have more passion about this movie than others, mostly me and Dave, but I think Lane's
I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I liked Tenet. It was a good movie. Second time through, there was some things I liked.
We all have
more
unique and different perspectives, and I think that's a good idea.
It was a good movie. I don't think it's all that's it's been cracked up to be by some people, but
yeah.
No,
we're all at different spectrums, and I think that's why we decided this was going to be our first movie review.
Yeah.
And why not do a collab of sorts?
Mm-hmm. You guys want to do like ratings? Right,
yeah, let's
right
start out with
bat.
ratings so that everybody in the audience understands where we fit on the spectrum of liking or disliking this movie. But I want to start with Lane first.
Yeah, throw me on. Can we?
Yeah.
Can we figure out a rating system? Are we doing like
5 stars?
Like a
5
stars? Okay.
You
Yeah,
could
5
do a
stars.
star system.
Can you give me a 0 reference point? Like a zero movie reference point, and then a 5-star reference
Blair
movie
Witch
point?
Project. Have you ever seen that movie?
That would be a 5.
That would be a 0.
See,
I already disagree.
this is where we.
It's very subjective. I thought the Blair Witch Project was all right. I didn't
All right.
just give it a 1.
What would be a 0 on the star spectrum for you?
I don't know, dude. That's why I was asking. I need a little help here coming up with the
Well, then make it your own.
rating system.
You think of the worst movie you
Okay.
ever thought.
So
and-
right now I'm taking Tenet and I'm putting it on a scale of 1 to 5.
Got it.
I don't know, man. Like a 3.65.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to the second decibel point. I like
Yeah,
it.
3.65.
Dave, 3.65. That's pretty strong. Where do you fit in?
I think that's a fair assessment. I think a 3.
Or Cash.
I am kind of unique in the sense of that I liked it better the first time we watched it than the second time we watched it.
Same.
I was hoping that the second time I watched it that I would either learn more or some of the issues would be more resolved, and I don't think they were.
No.
But if I graded it off the first time I watched it, my first time viewer experience,
We saw it in the movie theater. So.
I know, and that was a
Yeah,
long
that doesn't-
time
what
ago.
does that mean?
COVID has kind of screwed us up in the timeline of things, but I think
No,
that
if we saw it, didn't we see
during
it
COVID, because it
was
opened
during
up.
COVID
Yeah.
movie, yeah.
theaters opened up. We all
was
went
one of the
we all went to
few.
see Tenet. But the first time I watched it,
No, I don't think. Did I see it in theaters with you guys?
yeah,
I
we
know-
did.
I
We
thought you
all
did.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
we did. We went to
That's
Lakewood
when you
Town Center.
snuck me into
With
that
Lance.
movie. I was so
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
First time I watched it, it was definitely a 4.2. So I'm definitely
Okay.
on the higher spectrum of,
Okay,
of the
it was
star
a
system.
4.2, and the second time around.
It went down probably to a 3.8.
Okay, so we can average it out at a 4 out of
Yeah,
4.
4. I like it. 4.
Great.
So,
Why
Dave-
did Dave give it a 3? Is what I
well, that I was gonna say, Dave is definitely driving this
The biggest
train.
critic,
He's
yeah.
the movie expert. He's trained. He actually has a degree in this thing. And
I'm just curious. I mean, he's the biggest critic. I don't
how
know
about
why I
you
gave it a 3.
break it down for us on the things that viewers may not be more aware of? So, and I say that because as me, an amateur viewer, I get attracted to a lot of different things that I can kind of block out the crap that doesn't matter. But you focus more in. You're more precise. You really analyze why directors do the things they do and why they should do things that they shouldn't. Why do you think that your grade is pertinent to this movie?
So when I watched this movie, first of all, Christopher Nolan, right off the top, I love The Dark Knight. I think could be one of the best movies ever made. I'm probably biased because I love superheroes and all that crap. However, I'm not the biggest fan of Christopher Nolan, and he's technically a great director. He likes a lot of, his visuals, and this didn't disappoint in that department. There were so many really cool, like the chase scenes and the action sequences that surmised maybe a half an hour of the 2.5 hours of the movie were great. Like that, just the beginning when they're jumping up the walls and stuff. Awesome. And the car chase scene, spoilers. If you're watching this, you should have seen this.
Yeah.
Watch it before you watch this.
Spoilers.
Yeah, so there's my problems were more, I hated the way he gets his story out. Like there are in film school and, all the books, I wanted to be a writer. Like that was the main thing I wanted to get out of film school is I went into it thinking on the other side of this, I'll know how to write a movie. I don't know if that's necessarily the path I want to take anymore, but I know the right way you're supposed to do it to an extent. And I think with Christopher Nolan, this movie specifically, it's only the second one he's written without his brother. He wrote Dunkirk without his brother, and then now this. And I think his brother might have been kind of what helped round out his stories because I liked, like I said, The Dark Knight. I thought Inception was dope. And his other movies are okay. Just they don't seem like they always feel like they're a little cold, a little lacking soul.
When you say round out the story, because I think there's a difference in overall story and then how the story is delivered, right? So for Dunkirk, so much of that movie is based off of history. The story can kind of is self-explanatory or it's self-written, right, with actual historic events. But creatively, you take issue with the more nonfiction stories, right? And how from our past discussions, more of how those stories are delivered. So what were some of the issues that he experienced with delivering the message?
Well, I can tell you,
I like the story. I'm not gonna lie. Like the story itself is
I like the
great.
concept.
Right.
I thought it was a really fun idea. The problem is I didn't care for the characters. I felt like they could have been anybody, and I didn't have a connection to them. I didn't feel like he made them human enough. Actually, the only one I liked was Twilight. Pattinson.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson
Neil.
was sick as hell in this movie, by
he
the
was
way.
great.
And he's done some amazing work recently, but he killed it.
Yep. But I've got a ton of notes, and I was taking notes while we were watching it. So once, we kind of all throw in our overall kind of takeaway, then I can kind of go through and we can kind of bounce back and forth on this part of the movie or whatever.
Sure.
If you guys concur.
I think I'm ready for a little bit of give and take with some.
Well, before
What was your?
you gave a great overall. Like overall, the story wasn't very well developed, but for you overall, what do you think?
I mean,
What did you like?
Oh, specifically, what did I like?
Yeah.
I don't know. The action sequences are good. Like Dave was saying, Christopher Nolan does a great job of telling the story visually. One thing that I don't like, what is it called, exposition, when they verbally explain stuff. That was there's too much of that.
In screenwriting, in general, they say show, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
With movies, it's a visual medium, show, don't tell.
One thing
he tells a lot.
Yeah, one thing that I understand, a big contrast, you brought up Dunkirk, which is there was very little dialogue in Dunkirk and it was all visual. And in this one, it feels like he was just reaching way too far, like explaining every little detail. After we saw the movie the first time, Ashton was, why did he do this? I was like, well, Neil, Twilight guy, explained it several times over and over and over again. It literally just if you just listened, Neil or one other character was constantly explaining some of the more complex things with the movie. I guess I get it from dumbing it down, but the show don't tell, or, I think that's.
Yep.
Okay. No, for me, like the whole premise of the movie is something that I'm highly attracted to. Time travel, quantum physics. If I could separate the two from, like, if I could take this movie and separate into two mediums, one would be a great documentary and or science project about the theoretical side of quantum physics and time travel, and the other one would be a great action movie, because visually it was highly appealing. They did some great things. When you speak to show don't tell, I feel like they were interrupting the show part so much that it became distracting, and my brain would get kind of sidetracked and thinking about scenes that happened 2 to 3 times ago, trying to figure that out. Meanwhile, I'm getting bombarded with amazing visual aspects of it and fight scenes and how they orchestrated all those things. So I walked out of there kind of with a brain scramble, which didn't affect me much. Like, I was highly interested. There were so many unanswered questions, even though I had like discrepancies or arguments where I was asking all these questions that were interesting to me. I was still very invested in the movie, and that's why I gave it such a high rating. Was I was highly invested because it was a topic that I was interested in. I think if you have no interest in some of the theories that were presented, then you're going to be kind of experiencing an overload and almost too distracted to really enjoy some of the things that were presented. So my overall opinion was more of, I wish it was almost like separated into 2 movies. And Christopher Nolan melded the two. He wanted to meld the two in a way that he could present both at the same time. I'm not sure he succeeded, but I'm probably going to end up watching that movie 4 or 5 more times, so maybe he did. I'm not sure.
I felt like it was almost 2 movies. I felt like it was a lecture on this theory, and then it was him showing that theory at work. And so kind of like, we had discussed Interstellar a little bit while watching it. That was another one that wasn't, really my cup of tea. I
loved it.
Yeah, and my brother, it's one of his favorite movies. Interstellar, my gosh, masterpiece. Jonathan.
Oh, okay.
Not Ryan, surprisingly. My brother Ryan works on a telescope, and he's the space boy.
Mm-hmm.
But Jonathan loves it and loves all those theories. I never talked to him about Tenet. I'll have to see kind of here at Christmas. I'll ask him what he thought about it, because I think he's a Nolan guy. But anyway.
You got notes?
You guys are ready. Let's roll through these notes. All right. First one is just a silly observation. So in this movie, and Ashton said this as well, so what do they call it? The protagonist, John David Washington.
Literally calls himself that.
This is another thing that I thought was super corny.
Kills me.
Yeah, Nolan goes, let's not give this guy a name, because that's kind of, it was cool 50 years ago when Clint Eastwood rolls into town and he never has a name. And with Sergio Leone's No Name trilogy is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, and For a Few Dollars More, I think are the 3. And Clint Eastwood doesn't have a name at all. He's the man with no name.
And we've talked about the coolness of that.
And that was super cool.
Yeah.
And I think Nolan was just like trying to make this cool. But then when he has Homeboy call himself the protagonist, it just was so cringe to me.
In
like
your face.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm the protagonist of this story. You're like, gross, dude. Like, so on the nose.
And he didn't do it once. He did it multiple times. The movie kind of ends that way.
Yeah. It's like, let's not give him a name intentionally. He intentionally gave him no name, which it kind of served no purpose. Like, he's not this mysterious figure like Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood says very little. He strolls into town, saves the damsel in distress, kills the bad guy, heads on out of town. This story, it really serves no purpose to try to make him mysterious, because his character isn't a mysterious character. We know what he's thinking. We see him. We're taking the journey with him. Yeah. So I thought it was a silly choice. In that part, though, when there's a part of the movie where he is in, they're like these windmills out in the ocean, and he's doing pull-ups.
Chin-ups. He didn't do a goddamn pull-up. Not once, guys. He did chin-ups, and they were terrible.
And he chose, rather than doing them at the stair closest to him, or maybe one above that. How far up did he have to go?
Halfway.
10 flights of
stairs. It's like 150-foot windmill. He probably climbed halfway up.
There's just this really corny shot where you see him doing these chin-ups into the camera so that you can see he's really high up, just to raise the stakes for no reason.
And they're terrible form. Like, Which goes into some of our other arguments about the character or the actor choice. And no offense, I love that guy. He's amazing. The Washington family, God bless all y'all, but not sure he was the right choice.
And there's a couple reasons or a couple notes I took about him being the lead as well and the casting. This ridiculous chin-ups at the very top of this ladder for no reason. Added danger for no reason. There's no reason. It's not justified at all.
Right.
And what does it do for the story? Like, you're showing that, because that stuff's supposed to be motivated.
Right. The risk.
Right. So he's doing this why?
Preparation. I don't.
What is he?
I don't.
Right.
I don't
That's what I'm saying. Is it's when you're doing something that isn't normal and that you're going to take notice of, the viewer, you have to justify it, and there has to be a motivation. Seemingly, there wasn't one. It was just, let's do this really cool shot that shows how much of a bad he is doing chin-ups.
My niece will do more chin-ups than that guy, by the way.
Oh, and
she's 12.
And then after that, another odd character choice. I don't know if this was Nolan or if this was John David Washington. Probably Nolan, because it seemed like it was scripted. But for some reason, this dude's too busy to freaking eat anything. He gets to this meeting with Michael Caine. Michael Caine's like, hey, have some food. And he's like, yo, yeah, let me get whatever he's having. And then the dude comes out and he's like, okay, I'm ready. And he's like, can I get a box? And the dude's like, no. And he goes, all right. And just turns and walks away. It's like, what again, back to doing the chin-ups, what the heck does that tell me about this character that I need to know?
The purpose.
He doesn't eat?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point of that scene? And then he does it again. This is what I noticed last night when we were watching it.
When he was at the dinner with the bad
Yes!
guy.
I was like...
think about that.
Yeah, and I go... my note is, he's too busy to eat for some reason.
He's a cyborg, guys. He's a robot.
I didn't even realize.
He's a robot.
When he went to dinner at Sater's house, I didn't even realize that he didn't eat in that instance either. He just sat down, had a brief conversation, and left, kissing his wife on the way.
Gives a little kiss on the cheek. And
what is her
weird.
name, the female in the movie?
I don't know,
know?
dude.
No.
I don't remember.
Got your laptop.
The
Bust out of Google.
The blonde wife with no name.
Yeah, I was reading the
I can't
IMDb.
remember the character's name or her name.
Yeah, I don't either.
I got y'all.
I know that the son, because of the theory that Neil is her son.
Oh, yeah. Max.
Maximilian.
Yeah.
Neil.
Talk
Leon.
about that.
Yeah, the last four letters.
But, okay, so we'll finish these notes. Oh, another note. The music, very similar to Nolan. He always does the deep bass with the low beats per minute. It's always boom, some kind of beat like that. And this, no exception. It was, which I don't mind. I actually think it's kind of cool. I like that, he has a style. And I think it's memorable. But did it again in this.
She's
Nolan
Cat.
trademark.
K-
Oh yeah.
Cat.
Yep, that's right.
Maybe Catherine. We're not sure.
Yeah. So yeah, the music, typical Nolan stuff, is one thing we were talking about with the casting. So John David Washington, I'm guessing, is about 5'8".
That's the impression you get,
Could
right?
be. He seems super small because they cast the female. Well, Robert Pattinson's at least 6 foot. I feel like he's more like 6'1". And then they put him.
Look that up, Jamie.
I'm looking at
And then they go and get this tall model. She's a former model, the girl who played Kat.
Obviously.
She's hot.
She's Dutch, and she's probably a model, so she's
I
probably
think
like
she
6
was
foot.
phenomenally casted, honestly.
She was
I don't-
great.
Yeah. As Sater's wife, I don't know.
She
if
did a
anybody
good
else could
job.
play that.
She's 30 years younger than him. He's double her age, dude. Kenneth Branagh's 60. She's 30.
And he was casted great. I think there's 3 characters that I loved throughout the movie that I feel like were perfect. It's just who they were paired against, and that's Mr. Washington himself. Brannon's perfect. Pattinson, perfect. She was great, but it's the combination of the 4. Who's going to be the protagonist in the story that is going to elevate above them? Because he needs to. He needs to supersede all these characters, and that's where I had issues. But continue where you're at.
I think with this casting, I think.
Sorry, she's 6'3".
Yikes!
Nice.
See what the heck?
In heels.
Nice.
In heels, she's
Oh,
6 foot
she wore heels
6.
most of the
6
movie.
foot
Yeah.
8.
She wore heels
Who knows how tall her heels are?
And that was another odd choice. Why are you going to put this chick in heels? Like, she's way taller than him anyway. You pop heels on her? Come on, dude. Like, that's another, back to, you know, standard movie making. It's a power dynamic that is visual on screen.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a visual medium, they should have just done what Tom Hanks did. Or why would you cast somebody that's what I'm saying. It feels like, to me, my guess is, and I don't know, again, total guess. This movie feels like if Robert Pattinson and John David Washington switched parts, it makes sense casting wise.
Yeah.
I feel like Robert Pattinson's more of a leading man and size-wise, on screen, power dynamic,
Washington
it makes more sense.
Great sidekick.
He would have, and I don't know that he's a leading man. Like
He's comedic and in the right role, maybe.
he's not his dad.
No,
you know,
he's definitely not.
And I was trying to imagine it being Denzel, and I was like, man, if this was Denzel, this would be fire. You know,
Literally man on fire.
Yeah, but he's not. He just doesn't have the same look. He doesn't have the presence that his dad does.
He's a very handsome guy, though.
But as a director or the guy in charge of the filmography, isn't there a way to combat that? Like, couldn't they have done a better job of presenting him as more of his stature, his appearance as being more appealing, or
if that's what they were going for?
Well, yeah.
And that'd be my second question. So, I'll ask you, as you know, more of the expert, obviously. Could they have done things differently that would have made it better?
Yeah, I mean, the way you shoot it, too, you could have shot him
in heels.
Tom Cruise wears platforms. Sometimes Tom Cruise is walking on a platform or whatever next to another actor if they're shorter than him or if they're taller than him normally. I believe they did a lot of that on Interview with a Vampire because Brad Pitt's 6 foot. Tom Cruise is 5'6" or 7.
Mm-hmm.
But Louis, Brad Pitt, was supposed to, Lestat is more powerful than Louis. Lestat is who brought Louis into this world of vampirism. Mm-hmm. And even though it's just, again, because it's film and it's the visual cues, when you see somebody that's above, you psychologically go, he's in the power position. That's the power position. And so that's why this...
So the follow-up would be then something that Lane just presented would be if that's what they were going for. And I want to make it clear, as a short guy, that short guys' lives matter too.
He's not that short. He's average height.
But there's nothing wrong with a short, powerful, well-trained guy who can handle his business.
For sure.
But for the perspective of what Lane said, if they were going for that. So if his position is meant to be someone who's highly trained, a bad who can handle his shit no matter how tall he is, then why does it matter? Why does it matter how tall he is?
In real life, it does not.
Right.
We're talking about filmmaking. There's rules, and you're breaking a rule. And for somebody who's, I don't know if it tracks with normies, y'all, because I don't know if you guys noticed it, but for me, that was like one of the things that I didn't really think about it until I was like, man, this guy, he doesn't feel like a threat to me. Like at no point did I feel like, dude, John David Washington better beat some ass. Never.
Dude, that kitchen scene, I thought was badass.
Yeah, that was one. It was a cool scene. Yeah, in the restaurant when he was having dinner with Kat, and then
what was it, a fire extinguisher or something? Just popping him in the face. I'm like, I can do that now.
And then he steps out, and Kat's sitting in the car because Sater wanted Kat to see the protagonist come out all beat up. But
what she say? That wasn't expected.
No,
the driver said,
we must wait because Sater always gets what he wants.
Yeah, he wants you to see.
Yeah, and
Sater always gets what he wants.
Yep.
And then when the baddie starts rolling out, and John David Washington fixes his suit, she goes,
comes out, buttons
maybe
up.
Not always.
And then they speed off. No, that was a great scene. Probably one of my favorite scenes from the movie.
I thought the kitchen fight
in terms
scene
of
was one of my
developing the
favorite.
protagonist.
Because I think what you're trying, the point you're making is that visually at times you're just like, this seems weird, and I felt that at like later in the movie when Washington is talking to Kat on the boat or whatever, and literally the camera's perspective is behind her, looking at him, and she's way the hell up here, and he's down here. And he's literally looking up, and I'm like, dude, he just looks so small compared to her. And visually, and I've been hanging out with that guy way too much, and now I start thinking about crap this way, even though I didn't used to. I could just actually enjoy
I've
film.
ruined it.
But now he ruined for me. But no, I can agree. But other times it was pretty well done. So that kind of covers the idea of maybe casting wise, it could have been done differently or better. What else you got for us, Dave?
All right, so let's roll on to the next. The bad dude has tons of people on the boat. This was weird to me. Okay, this is a weird story element. So the bad guy, Sater,
yeah.
he's got all his goons, right? And then the leading lady decides to sneak into the protagonist's room. And then she's all like cloak and dagger about it. And I'm like, hold up. Why would she risk all that? And then immediately there's a knock at the door. You know, and then homeboy's like, yo, he wants me to come with hanging out. Or I think he said
without
my
his pants on.
Yeah. There's
Which
a sense
he's wearing
of
like
urgency.
khaki shorts that are very well dressed, and I'm not even sure he changed pants.
He needed to conclude his conversation with Kat. And
Yeah.
He didn't want to leave.
He's trying to cover for it because the goon, it
was
was almost like one of those old like gangster movies. The goon's like, dunk, dunk, and he opens the door and the guy's face is right there, and it's like The Shining. And
I
he's
was
going,
thinking the whole time, like, hey, goon, like, if I was a goon, I'd go in. Like, I'm way bigger than Washington. Why are you not going in? If you care so much to see what's going on in his room, why not you just, like, open the damn door and go figure it out?
yeah. Why would he be afraid of
Well, he had just saved
him
Sater's
not having
life,
his pants on?
So
Maybe
Yeah.
that had something to do with
I
it.
guess maybe he got a little leeway because of that.
a little leeway. I mean, that's why he was on the boat in the first place. On the yacht after, Kat had unclipped Sater during the sailing experience.
Yeah. And that was another kind of note I took was like right after that protagonist, JDW, is like weirdly aggressive. And there were a few scenes where he was like weirdly aggressive. So then he goes up with Sater and he's like, no repercussions against your wife and this and that. And Sater said something back to him along the lines of, well, it was just an accident, so of course there's not going to be any repercussions. And then like right after that, John David Washington starts like puffing out his chest and being like, and
Making
like
demands and controlling the scenario.
And it was really weird because it was like, you're not in the power position here, bro. You're on this dude's boat. Yeah. Yeah. And he's just like puffing his chest out. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, that's not situational awareness at all,
I would say to back that up would be the part where she just left his room and she's about to get beaten by Sater, and she says, I'll scream. If I scream, then like
Nobody will stop him.
he's going to he's going to save me basically. And I'm thinking to myself, one, how's he going to hear you scream across the boat filled with walls and doors? Yeah. And why the hell does this guy give a shit? Like,
and that was another thing is all of a sudden this guy has this massive allegiance. He's going to bust in there and save her. Because what, dude? Like, so far, what is your story?
Does Sater even have an allegiance to him? Like,
it was a threat. But also, I mean, to Dave's point, why put so much focus on that if it wasn't developing some part of the story?
Almost made him feel like a superhero. Like, oh my gosh, I need to fear
It was definitely
his power.
Captain Save-A-Ho the whole movie.
Yeah.
That brings us into another
For
topic.
no good reason, apparently. Why was he such Captain Save-A-Ho?
Do we want to go there?
Are
you ready for that?
So that's one of Dave's notes, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if I didn't write it down, then we can talk about it specifically. We'll cruise on to my next note here. I did address the leading lady. She's presumably has some sort of Stockholm syndrome. Her Sater she's like afraid to leave him. She's afraid of him.
It's a child dynamic.
Yeah.
He's using that as leverage against
and this
her.
painting, that she
could do jail time.
Pasta.
She falsified essentially. I think it was a Gouda or something.
Yeah.
Gupta.
Some kind of cheese.
Yeah.
I will look that up. Don't you worry. Sater has broke a deal with me.
Get up on that Russian Jamie.
Comrade
Jamie. Yeah, no, that was, the whole Sater and Kat dynamic I thought was pretty interesting too. It's just like she cannot escape because of this painting. But if you're running, it seems like if you're running from Sater, you're running from more than the cops that would be coming after you as well. So.
And if you're in such fear, this is where it was weird, and these are part of my notes, is it says she acts in total fear of her husband, but then tries to kill him on the boat, talks back to him constantly, cries when he throws a pillow at her, then pulls a gun on him 5 minutes later. It's totally inconsistent character choices, especially in someone, presumably in someone who's highly educated. That's how her character is portrayed. She's this, very intelligent woman.
She's an expert on painting.
Correct. Yeah. But she's just this total erratic mess. It doesn't, I guess it's possible. It just seems like typically in a movie, we only have a little bit of time to get to know a character. So why, if that's who you're portraying the character as, and you spend so much energy up front showing us she's this smart, intelligent, together woman, but then she's just an emotional basket case, and she is making these choices that could potentially, she's afraid of him and afraid of him exposing her. But then all those bad choices at any moment, if you were really afraid of him, why wouldn't he just go, all right, that's it. Now I'm killing you, or I'm turning you into the cops, or whatever it was, the threat.
So to answer your question, it's a Goyer painting. Goyer. G-O-Y-E-R.
Oh.
Goyer painting.
Gouye was close.
That's close.
Gouye.
Yeah.
And it could be that if it's French, right?
Yeah.
Gouye.
I was, yeah. But no, that was the whole premise. It was worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, this painting, and that was Sater's leverage over Kat as the character, was this painting. And then that was a whole big part of it. That was the whole get into the airport hangar situation that ended up being the whole pincer movement of the, what are they called, the quantum pincer movement or something?
Yeah, and I got a little bit to say about that. But going back to what you just said, talking about her character in general, being weak, being overly emotional, and these types of things, talking about exposition, like they had to spell that out so quickly that in the very first meeting she has with Washington at dinner, she just caves. Like, she goes from, he's revealing a little bit like, hey, I know things, so you should speak to me in this meeting with her. But she then, the whole idea, he wants to get to the point where he's kind of understanding that she's got leverage over him, or that he has leverage over her, I should say, and he wants to know why. She just drops it. Like, she just reveals all that. So much so that she just like spells it out on the table. Well, this is why I got this painting. And he told me, I'll never see my kid again, and all these different things. They just seem to rush so many aspects of this movie that I didn't find it very worthwhile to give a So I kind of agree with you on that, Dave. That makes sense.
Oh, good.
Does that make
agree
sense?
on something. Yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. Yeah. She's weak, but she's hot.
Yeah. Well,
She's got that going for her.
she's all right. Something about her seems weird to me. Maybe it was just the character choices made me not find her attractive.
She might not be that good of an actor if
She's
an actress.
she's good. What other movie she was in? She was in she was in that Henry Cavill movie. Who would have been great in this movie is Henry Cavill. But
Yeah.
where he plays an Englishman, and it's like two spies against each other, and the dude from God, what's his name? Do you know what I'm talking about? Something.
Army Hammer?
Yeah, Army Hammer.
Yeah.
Isn't she in that movie? Where she's
don't-
about? I don't know,
She
but I'm
could
gonna
be.
look that shit
I haven't
up
seen
right
it for
now.
a while.
y'all.
It was a Guy Ritchie one. It was a remake of some old 60s show. What was it?
Well,
I
she
don't
was in
remember
The
what it
Great
was called.
Gatsby, for starters.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, she's. I swear she's in this
right.
damn movie, but
All right, so the next note I had, at the midway point, with almost no justification, leading man starts deviating from the mission for the leading lady. A trained mercenary would never be so emotionally unstable. This seems to be a characteristic he gave the leading man and the leading lady. They both are making odd emotional choices, and they both come from a background that would presume more discipline, more self-control. She's supposed to be highly educated. She's in this aristocratic setting with this husband who, sure, he's an arms dealer, but she lives that lifestyle of high society where everything's controlled and calculated. He, a mercenary, you make bad decisions, you're dead. You're not going to last long in that life. But then for some reason, very early on, he's making emotionally motivated decisions rather than calculated mercenary decisions. And it was just weird. I just didn't.
Isn't some
I
of
didn't
that
feel like it tracked.
also to his backstory? And what the movie was, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. She was in that.
That's right.
She was really good in that. But isn't that playing to his backstory a little bit? Like, he was this kid who accepted these contracts in a nuclear environment, and by happenstance found a lucky way of gathering things from the future. But he was willing to do things that nobody else was. He wasn't raised an aristocrat. He wasn't raised rich. He came from very poor beginnings and was risky. He made risky decisions at the benefit of his future. And I think that means character-wise, he's very emotional. He is emotional. He's willing to do whatever. He takes risks, and she's a risk.
Both of these characters are at least, I mean, she's 30. I don't know how old John David Washington is. I presume close to the same age. If these were 22-year-olds, sure. They're, 30. Like by 30, you're kind of a little more calculated. And especially, again, in their fields. And especially with John David Washington in the beginning, they prove how much fortitude he has by that scene when he would rather die than give up secrets of the trade or, to his captors or any of that. So this guy who is so mentally strong that he's going to make that choice, even he's being tortured, he's not giving up anything. So it's so peculiar that you would show all that.
Critic.
Right. You're showing me all this as the viewer. Like, look how, this guy's got all these mental walls built up and he's so smart and calculated and taking one for the team. And then enter a girl who they don't have. In my opinion, there was no chemistry between the two of them. I never felt like it didn't look like or even feel like it was anything more than platonic. Like they didn't seem like, I never thought, oh, now here he's about to make out with, here it comes, nope, never. I never felt that way at all in the movie. And I never felt like they were feeling that way. So I don't know if it was bad acting or if it was shot poorly or if it was just a bad script. I guess I'd have to dissect it a little further, but I didn't care about their relationship at all.
Yeah. I think you're right in the sense that if you replace Washington with someone who presents more power or a sense of confidence or anything else, he was very comedic. Like he was sarcastic in so many different aspects. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't win me over that quickly if I was the chick that needed a cap to save a hoe. So I would agree with you on that. I think it was more of casting. If you insert anyone else and how about this? If you insert James Bond and he's sitting at that dinner table and I was her, I'd be like putting all my money on this horse right now. He's going to save me. I'll tell him whatever he wants to know.
It wasn't written for John David Washington. I feel like that movie was made for somebody else. They either pulled out or bailed or some scheduling conflict. Got pushed back. They didn't get the funding they needed. All the Hollywood reasons, because it didn't feel like it had been tailored at all to his strengths. I think the exposition, in particular, seems like a weak point for him. Like he felt like he was almost just reading the lines. Like he just had to get the information out, and that was weird. Like I thought most of the exposition, especially the one toward the end, when he's talking to the gal and they're spelling out the whole plan, like, so somebody in the future created all this technology and all these things come from the future, and they're walking for 5 minutes talking about it. She explains something to him, and then he just ends up explaining it back different and dumber so that the viewer can understand. So she'll be like, there is this technology that was manipulated in the future and sent back through time. And he's like, okay, so somebody in the future, he might as well have looked at the camera. So somebody in the future made this stuff. And then now that's what I'm trying to find. And then, okay, next. And then she's like, oh, and then whatever else, something else happened. And this, and
the pieces, she goes on to talk about the story of how the doctor created this weapon, but then had second ideas about it, broken into 9 pieces. And that's what.
Did you enjoy that part of it though? Like, how did you receive that information? Like, she's more scientific, he's dumbing it down, and basically both are talking to you.
It just seemed a little bit more like questy. It kind of set like the whole movie up as a little bit more of a quest. I don't know. I just said this earlier, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but I'm not a big fan of the exposition. The heavy exposition used. I mean, to Dave's point, it was just them going back and forth about a whole part of the plot here, just elaborating on this.
I think it would have been fire if we would have seen like 2-3 minutes of you're showing it. Like while they're talking about it, you cut to somebody in some made up future. You know, you see some kind of fake sciencey looking stuff, somebody in a labs sweating over this thing, and then it feels real to me. And then I'm not trying to like, some pieces of, if I start seeing it, again, the show don't tell. And how hard would it have been? Not really. But that method, the walk and talk, is something that they did a bunch in this movie, is the walk and talk. They did it. I mean, Nolan uses it a lot. Inception had a whole bunch of it. But at least in Inception, while they're doing the walk and talk, he is showing it. The world's folding on top of you. He's like, so right here, if I just make this bridge, you do bop, 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 and then you see it happen.
And it's a concept that the character he's talking to isn't already aware of.
Right.
And knows enough information about it that they could be an expert or, someone who's knowledgeable about it. Because I think that's what we talked about exposition-wise. And I've never even used the word exposition in movie critics until I met Dave. But now it's something that I apparently speak about. The idea of exposition can be done a variety of different ways, and they have different names for it. But one of the concepts that was unique was the idea that if exposition is used in a way that one person is explaining to another character about concepts they don't know, then they're speaking to that character, not me. But if one character is speaking to another character who should or does have enough information that they're reiterating it, or you're like, they're an engineer, they should know this, then now that character's talking to me and I feel dumb. Like, why are you talking to the audience? You know what I'm saying? Where you're saying, well, we might as well just look at the camera and explain it to the a-hole in the audience, kind of idea. And that got kind of old. The second time, it got way more old.
And there's a lot of cute ways that directors work around that. Like, like I was saying, if you're showing it while you're telling it, personally to me, also part of what made me want to make movies is I am a visual. We're dudes. Dudes are visual, anyway. But I love visual storytelling. I love seeing it. And so when you're doing all this exposition, like you could be playing a game on your phone, you could walk away and grab a drink and listen to it from the other room, and you're not missing anything. And to me, if you can do that with a movie, that's that's trash. I should have to be watching it. I mean, it's different if it's like an episodic show, Game of Thrones, you kind of know all the plot points, you can rotate the laundry and kind of keep an ear on what's happening. But with this, when you have so much, when you're spending $100+ million on a production, every scene should matter. And really, that's part of the rules anyway of filmmaking, is every scene is supposed to be getting you closer to your final goal. So what's your final destination? Every scene, there is, what do they call it, a conflict and a resolution. I think it's entry, conflict, resolution, something like that. Anyway, there's the beginning of the scene, then there's the conflict. So what is it that we disagree about? And then the resolution of that scene. And each one of those conflicts is supposed to be inching us toward our final destination, our final conflict and resolution. So in this movie, with the exposition stuff and some of the cornier scenes, I feel like, this scene could have happened anywhere. Why did it have to happen here? That felt like an unnecessary conflict. We've already talked about a lot of them.
Okay, so kind of moving past that, I feel like where he ran into issues was there's so much exposition and so many of these discrepancies or issues that we've kind of all discussed is largely based off of the theory behind the movie. What are the scientific discussions being presented in the movie? And they're overly complicated subjects.
This is the stuff you like, man.
I like it. I'm the amateur of amateur hour. Time. And Christopher Nolan presents time in a lot of creative, interesting ways in his movies, draws the audience in, allows him to, I don't know anything about Christopher Nolan, but he clearly has
He's a Brit.
some interest. Brits have serious interest in scientific ideas and quantum physics and time travel and these different things. And time, as you can tell, looking at Inception, looking at Interstellar, one of the first ones he did with what's the dadgum name? One of the very first ones.
What do you mean?
No. Where he taking the
Memento.
Polaroids. Yeah, Memento. Time is a concept that Nolan keeps coming back to, and if done right, he does a great job at it. Memento, great movie.
He also doesn't. I think The Dark Knight and Dunkirk are probably his only movies that are actually just a linear movie. Every other one, he tells non-linear stories. Batman Begins. You're seeing Batman training, and then you're seeing Batman right now, and then you're seeing Batman coming back to Gotham, and then you're seeing Batman right now. He does the same thing in Dark Knight Rises. Same thing in Inception. He's doing all the flashbacks. Memento,
Flashbacks can be great.
Interstellar.
Now he's introducing more of the science portions of it, right? A lot of different theories. And they bring up, for this purpose of this movie, when you delve into the concept of time travel, you've got to introduce general relativity. You have to introduce the grandfather paradox. You have to introduce the multiverse. How is time travel going to work? What are the repercussions? What happens when two people with the same atoms are come in contact? They discuss a lot of these different concepts in so many ways. Twilight, Robert Pattinson, he tries to explain some of it. He seems to be the science expert of this whole movie. But they breach the surface. Then they do a lot of cool scientific shit. You're highly confused. You're still processing all the scientific information they present. And so much of it, I think, is Christopher Nolan. He has a huge interest in it. He probably has a bunch of science advisors on the movie. I haven't figured out who those people are yet, because I follow a bunch of them, and from what I can tell, none of them were included on it. So it's either a personal interest in his, but so much of it just leaves the viewer going, oh my gosh, you just dropped a scientific research paper on me 3 scenes ago, and I'm trying to figure that out and how it relates to what the characters are doing now, and I can't do it.
right.
And maybe if I didn't have an interest, I'd be like, I don't give a shit what they just said. Like, that's some cool shit. You're running against walls. Bullets are coming backwards. That's just cool, and you're going to love this movie. But if you have even a remote interest, or you've explored or listened to podcasts about these concepts, you're like, I've heard that word before. Like, how does that relate? And what happens with this whole loop? And that was my big
The loop thing's
with this.
weird.
Because so much of the characters are resolved based off of that loop, like the ending scene. We're jumping to the end, but with Robert Pattinson agreeing to go back and finish the job, with Washington knowing that he's going to die. Well, is the scene over? Like, have they already surpassed the conflict? Why does he need to go back? Unless it's a loop that is required. So is the loop just going to keep recurring, and are they ever going to get past that loop? Well, in theory, if you're talking about a multiverse and different paths and forking and, simultaneous, versions of themselves going forward, then yeah, it would be important. But they never dive into that. They just kind of breach the surface of certain concepts, and that was my issue with it.
Yeah, until we were talking about it last night after having watched it a second time, until I was talking to you about some of the stuff that was going on in the movie. I still didn't even, I was like, oh, that's what was supposed to be happening there? Like, it was, to be honest, I kind of like, in that exposition, I kind of started tuning it out. I'm like, what is... cool, so some kind of future stuff, whatever.
You probably agreed with that, didn't you? Because when I asked you the question, you're like, yeah, it's like this. And I'm like, how did you come to that so easily when my brain's still messed up?
Yeah, I was paying close attention to what people are saying. That's why I always watch with subtitles on, is because I'm probably more used to exposition than other people, but Yeah, I mean the whole space and time sequence with the different pieces is
Didn't bother you.
yeah.
Good for you guys.
Yeah, glad you. I was. I guess I just got bored with it. You know, and I think part of it too is what I expect from. Well, Nolan is I expect there's going to be cool action sequences, and part of the advertising campaign, this was advertised like an action movie, and then you go and watch it, and there's some action scenes. You know, it was much more on par with Interstellar than I think any of his other movies. So,
Anything on your board?
yeah, we've actually only got about 2/3 of the way through. So, anyway, another silly observation I made when they're getting ready. So there's a scene where he first sees the time going backwards, and Homeboy's on the other side of the glass getting ready to shoot Cat, and he's talking in reverse, holding up the phone. And he's like, what? And what is happening? And he's seeing it. He's like, huh? And then he sees like the blood splatter start to retract. And he's like, no, wait. Oh, so that means he's going to shoot her. And he starts kind of like malfunctioning. Anyway, right after that, they get into the other room. They're talking about they're going back in time a week, right? There's not a way to get back here. And he's like, well, we're going to a week ago, remember?
Oslo.
Yeah. And so then they're like, okay. And then they're like piecing all that together. Then that buff dude with the green beret hat.
Love that guy.
Yeah,
He's
was
one
cool.
of my favorite characters.
Yeah, he was cool. He says there was a girl on the team that was seemed like one of the more intel type characters. He goes, yo, break it down for him since I guess we're doing this. And again, that guy too, right there on that scene, gave up. He doth protest not at all. He goes, we can't do that. And he goes, well, I'm doing it with or without you. And he's like,
That's
all right,
cowboy shit, I think he's what he said.
Yeah. And so then that scene, they get on the other side. The girl's breaking it down for him. And she's like, here, put this suit on. He's like, nah, I ain't got time for that. I don't think he said that, but
No, he pretty much said that.
Yeah. And I'm like, this dude can't eat. He can't put on a jumpsuit. Like,
Cowboy, bro. He's Clint Eastwood. He's the man with no name.
He's got nothing but time. But he is not mysterious like Clint Eastwood. He talks too much. Like, if you want to have him be that character, cool.
Shut up.
He should. Words are few and they're precise. They're to the point. You know, that's how you can pull that off when you have that mysterious character. But anyway, yeah, that just seemed weird to me again. I was like, it was clearly in the script. He's not going to just ad lib. No, I'm not going to put this suit on. So I was trying to figure out story-wise why Christopher Nolan kept making this guy seem like he's in the biggest hurry in the history of the world. It didn't make sense to me. I couldn't figure out why.
He always had time to do pull-ups, huh?
Yeah, all he's
chin-ups. He was doing chin-ups on
all
the
he's
boat.
got time
on
for
the
is
boat,
chin-ups.
he's doing chin-ups, and he always does like 3, and they're terrible.
Can't put on a jumpsuit, but I got that chin-up time.
What's funny is apparently he was traveling forward and backward through time to reach the windmill and coming from the windmill simultaneously. I didn't realize that watching it, but it was one of those things that was kind of recapped in a YouTube video. But
when you speak about time too, like they're always making it seem like he doesn't have time. He doesn't have time. He's always in a rush. He's literally on a boat. He has to be on that boat in the same amount of time it takes to go backwards to days, if not weeks before, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot of time.
And back to who he is. This mercenary, highly trained, super disciplined. I can't take 2 minutes to put on a jumpsuit.
Especially when
if it's going to give
science expert is
if it's going to give me an advantage,
yeah,
like a tactical advantage, that doesn't track to me with who his character is supposed to
He's
be.
got to go figure out how to drive a car backwards.
Right.
Poorly developed. Check.
Yeah. See, but it was a clear choice in the writing. Nolan put it in there intentionally. Very odd. Like I said, I was confused
I think
by it.
he's just spending a lot of time explaining that's in his head, and he feels like he's compelled to do it. He's like, well, I know why, so I need to explain it, but I don't want to explain it too much, so I'm just going to throw in this exposition for it, and I'm going to make them guess.
But all those 3 instances, rejecting food twice and refusing to put on the jumpsuit, all had to do with nothing but urgency. He's showing that this guy's in a hurry. But they just seem really weird ways of
It
trying to
wasn't
do
the time.
that.
It wasn't the time of it. Like, I guess that's what my only explanation. If I'm going to be the devil's advocate, it has to do with time. And this is all about time.
Yeah,
Every second counts.
And that's clearly, I think, what he was going for. They just seem, like I said, very weird ways to show that. It seems like you could have done something where everybody eats. This dude eats at some point.
Yeah.
But he can't sit down and eat when he's getting information. Silly.
He had to get to the tailor.
Bet. So who recruited you? This is a really weird choice of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So having seen it the first time, you know now who recruited him. Why would that question be asked?
Who recruited who?
The only reason John David Washington recruited Neil.
Okay.
We know that at the very end. Neil breaks it down for him. He's like, haven't you figured it out by now? It's you, dude. So, but before that, on that boat ride, or not on the boat ride, right after he rejects putting on the space-saving jumpsuit, whatever that jumpsuit even did for him, I don't know if the girl even finished explaining it before he goes, nah. But she's like, yeah, you need to put this suit on because it'll be better for you in time. He's like, give me that oxygen mask. I'm done. Right after that, he's talking, while they're being transported, he's talking to Twilight about, who recruited you to do this?
There was a conflict between Neil and the protagonist, and it was every step of the way. You've known too much.
Right.
Who are you? I think it was kind of character development for Neil, and I thought that was weird. Also, like, is that like you don't know if that's common protocol for people to ask who recruited who, and like special
and that's what I'm saying. That
operations?
question specifically, knowing now at the end that it was him, it was clear foreshadowing. You're planting the seed in the viewer now. Who recruited you? And so then we're supposed to, now he's telling us we're supposed to care. Why the heck do I care? Who recruited him? Like you haven't justified my curiosity as the audience. I don't care who recruited him. Mm-hmm. I still don't even know what his job is. Why are we not asking more about that? He just kind of, I feel like, unjustifiably cut through 50 questions to get to who recruited you? And he's like, specifically, he says, it can't do you any good to know that now.
Yeah. The
Great
whole
job, by the way.
Thanks, dude. I actually
thought
felt
that was
good about
Robert
it.
Pattinson sitting in front of me right now.
In the middle of it, I couldn't remember if I was the one saying it or if I was listening to a soundbite.
That's hilarious. Yeah, Robert Pattinson's choice to not reveal anything, but then later reveal everything.
Right. Weird, right?
Yeah, to what avail? Like, if you're going to use exposition and then timed exposition, and for whatever reason, it seemed like the protagonist was the protagonist, but I think it was that character imbalance. Like you guys said earlier, when we opened this, Robert Pattinson probably would have played a lot better of a lead.
You bring up a great point. You're talking about the revealing of information, and they even announce it in the movie where Robert Pattinson says, if I tell you, then you may basically change your mind, and that could avert from the path that is meant to be, right? Yeah. First of all, my first question is, what's the point of time travel if you can't avert certain behaviors and or decisions, right? Because the whole concept is to change things. Two, yeah, the whole movie is based off of these rules that they follow and they do so that different characters withhold information and tell lies and different things. And then you're right. At the end, he says, you recruited me. And Washington knows you're going to your death. Now he's going to go forward with knowing this information. That ultimately is like the number one rule you just broke. Maybe he cares. I don't think Neil did, because he doesn't know in his mind that he was shot in the face and he died. Touche, Lane.
One fan. So,
So your bias is what you're saying.
It'd be like that
Don't
sometimes.
let your bias enter this sanctum.
I suppose I could be biased.
So go to a point on your list that you enjoyed.
Hey, didn't.
I think I covered the stuff I liked at the top. I think, and I gave it 6 of 10, 3 out of 5 stars. To me, that's not bad. That's like, it's a better than average movie.
Yeah,
Visually.
Better than average. Yeah, I'll take it.
Dude, he crashes a real daggum plane into that art.
And that was tight. Yeah. I think all of that stuff was really tight. I think all of the action scenes were cool. I think I think John. I think maybe if you swap John David Washington with Neil, Twilight guy,
Henry
Robert
Cavill.
Pattinson, I feel like for real,
Daniel
and it
Craig.
sounds stupid, and I don't know if it, but if you just swap those two characters, I think they're better suited as the other guy, and it might have, to me, made the movie more I might have paid more attention, because I just don't think John David Washington's a lead, dude. The only other thing I've seen him in, though, is Ballers.
Black Klansman.
I didn't see it.
Oh, it was good. But I'm not even sure. Well, he was
Might
like
be.
a dual lead.
Yeah, with Adam Driver.
And he's comedic, and he kind of plays just this oddball.
So
They support each other.
not-
character.
it's not fair to
character-wise.
compare him to his dad, I suppose, but that's all I can think of, because he looks a lot like his dad.
Talks
but
and
his-
mannerisms.
Yep. But his dad has just a presence, you know what I mean? And so maybe I'm not being fair to him, but when I'm looking at him, all I see is the cheap version of Denzel. I'm like, this is like, I couldn't afford Denzel, so I got this guy.
So we're not going to get too many raves from the Washington family, everybody.
So you can take it
Denzel,
from,
like it?
yeah, you can take it from my perspective. Going into this movie, I didn't even know he was Denzel's son, so I didn't have any comparison whatsoever. But I never felt a strong attachment to the protagonist throughout the whole character.
So it's not just that.
Yeah, no, I think Robert Pattinson. I mean, maybe I just love him as an actor, but I felt very strongly attached to his character.
Well, his character actually smiled. His character
Yeah.
actually, like, he seemed like around in, maybe it's just because Pattinson's become a great actor. I really haven't been following his career. He's been making a lot of very strong character acting choices.
Batman.
Yeah.
I'm Batman.
I can't imagine he would have gotten Batman if he was trash. So the bromance was effective.
Yeah.
Like at the end, when Neil sidekick goes to his demise and knows it, like, because he says this is goodbye, basically, like this is the end of a journey that's just beginning for you.
Yeah.
So Neil knows he dies.
And he calls it the reality of it.
Yeah, and that this is the way it goes. This is how it always goes, kind of a thing. So then that's the whole loop thing. This is part of I guess the writing. A lot of my problems were just the writing of it. I think the action stuff, great, but my attitude is I felt like it's always good for business to kill the sidekick to make that big sacrifice. There's a term for, this big sacrifice. This movie seems so cookie cutter in so many ways, like they did with the bad guy. When you first meet the bad guy, they got to do something sinister. When you first see the good guy, they call it save the cat. So the hero saves the cat. In the opening 5 to 10 minutes, whoever we're supposed to think, oh, this is the good guy, he shows you. 99% of the movies you're going to watch, if it's a good guy, bad guy type, action story, it'll tell you who the good guy is by seeing them save a cat. Not as specifically a cat, but
Could be a cat.
it could be. And that's why it's the Save the Cat. That's what the name of the book is, even about screenwriting, is like the rules for who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, how do you establish it. And I feel like with this stuff, with that movie in particular, all of it is so cookie cutter. I feel like Nolan was just kind of like, okay, have him save the cat. Like, I want to talk about time and all this. Like, he was just almost, those plot devices just seemed like they were in the way. And to me, those are the rules, and I appreciate creativity with those rules. Like, you show him save the cat in a way that I don't go, oh, this is the save the cat moment. And with that movie, I can't even remember what it was at the beginning. Like, they run in and he saves the life. He saves the life of that guy.
Yeah.
So that's his cat. So he right away, he's the good guy because he's just saved somebody's life that was going to die. He
makes
disobeyed
the
orders, didn't he?
sacrifice,
Yeah, to save a life. So now, this is who we're supposed to like. He's the good guy. It felt a little too on the nose, Whatever, you got a long movie to make, and he's in the way. Him saving the cat is in the way of you getting onto what you really want to talk about. And I feel like his time loop is what Nolan really wanted to talk about. And so, like I said, all those plot devices seemed like they were in his way, and he's like, okay, have him save the guy, and then now we can move on to my time stuff. I think with the death at the end, and this is something I don't understand the whole time loop concept enough really have a good critique of it, but I feel like these are Nolan's roles. He made these roles. He could have made a role where at the very end, and to me it would have made the movie better, he makes John David Washington figured out a way that it wouldn't disturb the timeline to give Neil a piece of information that will then save Neil. He says, Neil, something.
He makes the sacrifice, and he does it.
But what I was thinking is, he says, Neil, at 3 seconds, check your 6, or something like that. So you could have figured out.
Duck.
Yeah, something like that. And then Neil's like, oh, okay, like he doesn't quite know what he's talking about. And then it ends. And then when he's in the car with that lady at the end that he kills, cut to, he pulls up next to Neil, or you see Neil in the car next to him. And Neil's like, well, got that one taken care of. Something like that. You know, and then it's like, oh, he survived. And then it ends on like this super high note because to you, Neil's dead. And then boom, but he survived because they're Nolan's roles and he could have done that. And then it's a happier ending. I felt like the ending was.
Maybe there's going to be a sequel and Neil figured that shit out.
And yeah,
and he becomes the bad guy.
I also am a sucker for happy endings. I like either end on a super bad note where like an everybody dies kind of thing, or figure out how to make it happy.
Yeah.
Because I either want everybody dead so that I don't feel like the bad guy got away with it because he died too. And, you know, and the hero makes the ultimate sacrifice. So then you go, well, you know, they did it. Or make it happy. And Neil dying, I felt like it was unnecessary. I would have loved that scene that I said. Like he says, Neil, you know, whatever little piece of throwaway information that'll save your life. But we as the audience go, what is that? Huh? And then Neil's next to him in the car.
Well, maybe that was
fire.
Him saying, I guess you're saying I'm the only one that could pick that lock, and the Brit commando says yes. Maybe that was Neil revealing, okay, something needs to change. And maybe that's what we don't get to see.
Could be.
Put your hopes and dreams on that, Cowboys. It's going to happen.
Yeah, like I said, that bromance was good. I even, on that one part, their goodbye, you know, I got a little, I don't know if I cried, but I cared about Neil dying.
I don't cry.
And you knew, and that was another thing I thought was a little bit silly, showing that it was Neil. You see the little charm hanging from his backpack. Mm-hmm. So when it focuses on it, you see this close up of this charm, you're like, they're telling you, this is important, look at here. Yeah. You know, it's like the storytelling elements, I feel like he was kind of phoning it in. Like, okay, we got to make sure they see this, do a close up of that. So they see the key thing. And then when he turns around, do a close up on it again. If you would have just left it wide on that last shot instead of doing a close-up. And then as the audience, and this is another thing they say in screenwriting, is let the audience feel like they solved the puzzle. You know, so you don't spoon-feed me what I'm supposed to know. Let me figure it out. And then I'll like it more because I feel like I earned it. If you see him dead on the ground and you maybe don't do that close-up, but you make it noticeable, there's something different about him. And then same on that last shot. You maybe don't do the close-up, but we see the same little thing.
Well, yeah, because you know he's rushing and he gets the vehicle and he does all these things and you see that, and then you see a dead guy and then he could pop up, get shot in the face, open the door, everything he does, and then he saves him, and then Neil just walks back and you're just like, oh, we know what he's doing. I get that.
Or Neil puts on like a special mask that only he had. Something that you know who it is, but like I said, just the close-up, the specific attention to it just seems so kind of over the top. Just my last note was I think it would have been cool to see the leading man and the sidekick at the very end hanging out.
Like drinking beers.
Yep. You presume Neil's dead, and then somehow, like after that last scene with the girl, you know, he's like, I got her message, kills that girl, and then you see him in a pub. And Neil comes in even, and he's like,
with the charm.
You were right about, close up on the charm.
Drops it on the table. Back.
And he's like, oh, you got my message, or you figured it out. It's like, yeah, it took me 2 more times through or whatever, you know, but I got it. I think that would have been fire.
So 2 questions then to kind of close it out, unless you guys have anything else. 1, would you recommend this movie to our viewers to watch? And then 2, do you think there's going to be a sequel?
I can't imagine there would be a sequel. Worthy of? Sure. I think it's a really cool concept that you laid the groundwork for, and I think you could expand on it now that you've given us the rules, now that we understand it.
Third question. Is it going to happen within the loop, or is it going to be something beyond the loop?
No.
All right, you go first.
Well, the whole.
Would you recommend? What? I don't even remember the damn 3 questions I asked. Would you recommend? Is there going to be a sequel, and where does the sequel lie?
Yes, I would recommend watching it. As any Christopher Nolan movie, I think you should watch. Come up with your own opinions. They're good. Judge them yourselves. Is there going to be, or is it worthy of a sequel? Yeah, Christopher Nolan is yet to make a sequel, really, apart from the Batman ones, right? But these one-hit wonders, it doesn't seem like he's interested in doing it again. And I don't think anybody else could do a Christopher Nolan movie as well as he does. To his credit, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about holes and things we would have did differently, but, I mean, Christopher Nolan did it probably better than anybody else. And what was the third question?
If they did a sequel, where would it lie? Within the loop? More development of Neil / probably Max. I'm guessing it's Max, the son of Kat, but we didn't even talk about that. Within the loop or beyond?
No, and my reason being is because the whole thing was that temporal pincer movement that they go on to talk about, and the name Tenet itself, same forward as it is backwards. The whole movie, while the final scene is going on, saving the day, it's the same time as the opening sequence of the Opera House. So for there to be a sequel, it wouldn't be true to like the Tenet nature. So that's why I don't think, it wouldn't be a part of that temporal pincer movement. It would be outside, and
I think really be a sequel. So the pincer movement, Tenet, is spelled 10 and 10 backwards, and it meets. And the whole pincer movement was 2 groups of soldiers, one going forward, one going backward within this 10-minute time frame, hence the pincer movement. But if they did a sequel, are you saying it would be within that time?
No.
Going forward, leading up to, you would say beyond?
Yeah.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, I don't know.
If they did a sequel, what do you think? Before or after?
I think if you do a sequel, John David Washington needs to be surrounded by people who aren't bigger than him. Cast the Smurfs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they made enough money off of it to do a sequel.
Well, with the COVID, I don't think it made its money back even. I don't know what you would do with the sequel. Would I recommend it? I wouldn't say don't watch it. I feel like the best way to recommend it, though, would be with a preface of, some movies you sit down and you eat some popcorn and it's just, you want to just have fun. You just want to take in something, Jurassic Park, something, this isn't that. Like if you sit down knowing you're getting a lecture and a movie in one, then yeah, I would recommend it. I still, even having watched it a second time, didn't quite understand like all the science-y stuff that was going on because I'm crazy about like
the film stuff.
Yeah, so I kind of got out of it with a lot of the film stuff being, the character development. Yeah. And I was like, this is so weird. What? That doesn't make sense. Why is he doing that? So it kind of pulled me out of the experience, but
fair enough.
Yeah.
Cash.
I think I would definitely recommend it. It would be hard for me to obviously recommend after watching this if you haven't seen it because you know way too much already. But if you're going to recommend it to your friends that haven't seen it, then provide them a preface of like, don't invest so much into the science part of it and enjoy the visuals. For me, that if I would have just said, just enjoy the action, don't invest too much in trying to understand the science behind it, I probably would have enjoyed it even more. But if they were, do I think there's going to be a sequel? Probably not. I don't think all the stars aligned for them to do a sequel. It didn't succeed as well as it needed to. But if they did do a sequel, then I want them to do one post this loop because you need to explain a lot as far as how they got out of the loop. How do you not keep reoccurring this sequence of events? And technically, we never saw old Washington. right? We
Yeah.
never saw him. We know he recruited Neil, but why did Neil, where is he in this spectrum? Why did Neil travel backwards to meet the beginning of Washington's character, and where is he? Did he die? Is he alive? He designed this pincer movement. Why is he not involved in the pincer movement? Is it because he can't interact with Washington? So I want to see.
He saved the pincer movement. Like if
Right.
it weren't for him deciding in the middle of it to, run around crazy.
Dude, I could talk for 3 hours about some of the scientific questions, and I would love to get Sean Carroll on here and have him critique it. I found a podcast last night with Sean Carroll where he wants to talk about the TENET concepts, but apparently he hasn't seen the damn movie yet. But yeah, no, I think that's the unanswered question is future Washington. I keep saying old. Future Washington is not involved. He orchestrated all this. He created TENET. He designed the pincer movement. He did all these things. So give me that story, Mr. Nolan. And that's it. So
Next movie review. Christmas
what
Day.
are we going to watch?
Yeah.
1984.
We're going to do Wonder Woman 1984. That'll be the next crossover Christmas review. And then, sorry, go ahead.
I'm excited.
Yeah, dude, it should be cool. I thought this was great. To be honest,
Some of
this
us
was
were
a lot
alive in the 80s.
a lot better than I thought it was going to go. I am going to be doing this next week. I will be releasing a Christmas episode on the Freakin' Dope podcast. So this will be on the Freakin' Dope channel as well. All these crossovers I hope to be putting on, our channel and the Lakeside Boys channel. So tune in next week for Wonder Woman 84 crossover. And then the Christmas episode should release. I'm planning on Christmas Day.
Woo!
So
Christmas Day.
You're going to release another one soon, too?
Yeah, we don't need to plug StarCast. It
Do
plugs
it.
itself.
Oh, dude, do it.
Yeah, no, we won.
Yeah, lots of StarCast coming. Episode 2, unfortunately, was cut up due to some technical issues, but it's coming probably the next couple days. And then episode 3 coming shortly after. End of The Mandalorian. So if you've been following The Mandalorian, there's been some mind-blowing events coming up, and we're going to spend some time talking about that.
Don't forget to click that magical button. Subscribe, guys. We're very new. We could use the followership. Is that a word? I don't know.
Let us know we're doing a good job.
Give us some
Positive
input. Tell us what
reinforcement.
you want to hear about. If there's movies, ideas, concepts, games, we're just here to party. So
And Ashton is going to be doing the Lakeside Boys podcast. What we're going to be doing these group episodes
I want
is.
a gang sign that says LSB. But I don't have one yet.
I thought we were getting tattoos.
We are getting that.
We're going to be doing more of these Lakeside Boys podcasts. I want to do these movie reviews for Freakin' Dope. And so we're just doing this collab where we're Lakeside Boys and Freakin' Dope.
Yep.
So
Subscribe, guys. We do funny skits and different beer reviews and hot wings and who the hell knows, but it's been fun. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Oh,
fun.
and with this next couple holiday weeks, we're going to be banging out some fun little skits too. So, yeah, follow. It's going to get fun.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Oh, should I salute?